All right. Looks like we are live here for Ecom Ask the Experts, presented by Kenshu. My name is Nick Weinheimer. I'm the GM of e-commerce at Kenshu. I'm joined by Tony Morales from Pattern, one of the world's largest sellers on Amazon. Tony, welcome to Ecom Ask the Experts Live. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. I see you've got the world map behind you. You've been plotting the domination as one of the largest sellers on Amazon. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and Pattern and your focus there.
Yeah, it's not world domination. I'm planning my vacation for when the lockdown is over. So
There it is.
very excited about that. So again, I'm Tony Morales. I'm the director of advertising at Pattern. We are one of the largest sellers on the Amazon selling platform. So Amazon has over 3 million selling partners. I think now almost 900,000 of those are what they would call professional sellers.
Mm-hmm.
I think we jockey between position 2, 3, kind of like Harvard and the University of Chicago, back and forth every year on the ratings list. But yeah, we work with a number of different brands and we help them grow their e-commerce businesses, and we act as the seller of record on Amazon for many of those brands.
Got it. So you have kind of a hybrid model of being both a seller kind of with an inventory position as well as somewhat of an agency model. Is that correct?
Correct. And I would say we basically run, the Amazon, the Amazon business for sure, but also e-commerce. So we do, we work in the US. We also work globally in a number of different countries. Walmart.com, Mercado Libre, Tmall, all of the big marketplaces. We take a brand and help that brand distribute their products, on all marketplaces worldwide.
Got it. So you're not just an Amazon only shop, and certainly
Correct.
Getting products syndicated wherever the customer is, obviously a smart move if you're trying to grow brands. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you also have a history with Amazon themselves as well, right?
I do. I worked at Amazon for 3.5 years. I was actually the very first external hire on the Amazon advertising team. So I was on the sponsored products team, specifically, really in the infancy of when it was created. So it was within sort of the first several months of sponsored products even existing, and I worked on that team for 3.5 years at Amazon before joining Pattern.
Very cool. So you were in the inside, kind of saw how the sausage was made, and now can go on the outside and take what you've learned in the advertising front and scale that. So I would imagine for Pattern to be one of the largest sellers, you guys are selling across quite a few different categories, with the different brands that you represent. And I know in the context of the world we're living in, my office I've been in this is week 8 now that I've been here at home. But there have been some challenges for some brands, some great opportunities for other brands, and I bet nobody better than yourselves at Pattern to kind of see some of those strategies unfolding. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about from your perspective into the business, which of those brands that are doing well and which are struggled right now, and maybe some anecdotes behind that.
No, definitely. So I mean, a couple of things which are going to come as no surprise. So supplements. Specifically immune supplements.
Okay.
It's very hard to keep zinc in stock. We have a number of different, top of the line supplement brands that we work with, and and anytime we have something like zinc, we're selling out in hours, right? So supplements, cleaning products, anything that has to do with sanitization of any kind.
Sure.
But I think it's interesting when we look at the marketplace in general, things like running socks are still going strong. We're seeing lift in beauty products, especially high-end beauty. So anything that somebody would normally do at a salon, right? And the devices that allow somebody to do those same kind of beauty procedures at home, those are being sold very successfully now. Categories like wardrobe, for example, or apparel. So apparel in general is doing very poorly, right? Apparel struggles, online as it is. But I think there are niches inside those markets. So if you look at athletic footwear, even though apparel's down, athletic footwear is, skyrocketing. So anything running, athletic footwear, socks, those things are doing really well.
Sure.
Luggage is struggling,
Not so good.
But, we're seeing is, one of our brands, sells a cleaning device for CPAP machines. They're doing very, very well. Jewelry is not so hot, but candles are doing surprisingly great. So it's a really interesting mix of stuff.
That's certainly. I mean, what do you think is probably the biggest surprise for you that you saw kind of going? I mean, some of them kind of make sense, right? Like you're at home, you've got your kids at home, potentially more toys and games kind of coming into the house potentially, or you're trying to get this new exercise regimen because your gym is closed. You still need to wear shoes. I thought some of the most interesting data I saw was around, in apparel sales, tops are still selling, but anything below the Zoom line here, not selling so well. I'm not sure if you've seen any surprises in your group at all on that front.
I think the big surprise for me is I think the number of new customers. So when we're looking at let's say supplements, for example, it's not just immune supplements; it's all supplements, and I think they're selling well. And originally, the original thought process when we saw kind of a spike was, is this just existing customers or existing brand loyal people, purchasing in bulk because they're afraid their things are going to run out. And what we've seen is that's actually not the case. There certainly are existing customers that are buying more, but what we're seeing is that the majority of the demand is coming from new customers. So when you have a product that is consumable, what's really exciting is that like the lifetime value of that can really play out, after this kind of season of pandemic is behind us. So that's one thing that I think the brands and obviously our business is hoping is going to continue. But I think the volume of new customer has been the biggest. And just really across the board, like that's one example. But I think there are many people that. There are many people who actually maybe have never shopped online, right? That number isn't enormous, but there are those folks who are now doing that because they don't have an alternative. But there are many people who, are regular online shoppers, but in their shopping pattern, there are certain items that they would get online and then certain items that they wouldn't. But we sort of have this brick and mortar closure, they're forced to do more. So for many product categories, we're seeing these spikes in new to brand customers where, maybe they've purchased maybe they're not necessarily truly new to brand because they've purchased it elsewhere, but they're new to brand via online, which is exciting. So
right. That's super interesting. I like the way you snuck in that pattern in there. Now I see why you guys are called pattern. What's the pattern of the shopper there? Super interesting. And we also did a study of our index for new to brand as well. And it's super interesting to see some of the statistics of, the rate at which, new e-commerce customers are coming into this channel. And for those of you who maybe don't know about the new to brand metric, it is a metric that Amazon shares natively to their advertisers. When those advertisers invest in sponsored brands, they will get a metric of how many of the converted customers were net new to file shoppers for that brand within a given 1 year look back window. And it's been fantastic. I mean, I think as we looked at the average of last year, it was about maybe a 5 to 6% of our index order volume was new to brand. We're seeing sustained like 13, 14% new to brand across the index, with some of our categories just like toys and games I brought up recently is up 141% in their new to brand order volume month over month between February and March as these customers have come online. But I think the interesting point to your point about like potentially brand loyal customers that maybe have bought that, they always bought whatever it was, at the grocery aisle when they were on their grocery trip. They're now kind of being retrained. We see that maybe it's in the conversion rates. We've seen a 20% conversion rate lift in new to brand shoppers, which maybe speaks to some of those brand loyalists that are now, hey, if you do it for 3 weeks, it's a habit, let alone 12 weeks or whatever the case might be.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see that. But kind of speaking about trends, and maybe to kick it back to you, I know, as this happens and we see some of these moving parts start to become real trends, like where do you see this netting out for us, in like maybe, as you project this out, as we see the effects of this?
Yeah. So, I mean, netting out from, an economic perspective, I don't know if I'm the best person qualified to predict the future, but if we look at just say e-commerce, right? Because I'm not going to speak to what's the future for brick and mortar, but if we
Alan Greenspan coming on next, so economy is we'll figure out with.
Excellent. But if we look at e-com, right? So we've sort of seen this. There's been this giant wave happening over the last several years, right? And I think last year we were just shy of 4 trillion, if I remember correctly, in e-com sales. And I've seen a number of studies projecting by 2023, 6.5 trillion worth of volume coming through e-com, right? So I think just naturally you have this big growth trajectory of e-com as things are easy, right? It's just easier. It's just easier for me to buy with one click and have something show up on my porch than it is for me to leave my house and walk around. So we have that going on. But when you forcibly take away any alternative method of purchasing, right, you're kind of left with this. So this is why we see Amazon right now struggling to keep up with the demand, right? This is why Amazon had to have restrictions on what they deem to be only essential items, right, for a period of time, because they're busier now than they are during holiday time. Right?
And they were slapped with this holiday volume overnight, right? Like they didn't have the benefit of hiring those 100,000 workers going into October, right? This just happened. So
yeah, correct. So there was no 3-month ramp up for them. It was like all of a sudden, boom, right? And just receiving, right? So what I know is, Prime Day, I have it on good authority that, Prime Day has been moved. It is still happening. There's some rumors that it wasn't. It is still happening. It's rumored to be moved to mid-August. But a lot of this is, Amazon's ability to receive product and take things in and receive product, and they have to plan for that. But, I think that we're certainly seeing shopping patterns change and people doing more e-com than they have in the past. And so my expectation is that the growth curve for e-com that has sort of already been in place is going to accelerate, because of this. So how much, I don't know. And what will be the sustainability of it? I mean, we've seen, e-com spikes. I've read some things up 53%, since all this has happened. But I would say that even as we begin to return to normal or governmental restrictions are lifted, I think there's still a large swath of the population that is gonna be concerned or nervous about just re-engaging, right? You're always gonna have your curve of early adopters, early majority, right, late adopters, right? So there's gonna be a lot of folks, I think, that kind of lag returning to normalcy. And even when we kind of get back to sort of the same cadence that we were pre-March, part of me think even if the sustained lift is 10%, right, we're seeing 10% more e-com than normal. I think that's a huge win for the whole industry. My guess would be it would be much higher than 10% as these shopping patterns change. And so I think we have a couple things going on for businesses that are majority online, a huge win for them. But for businesses that are, traditionally, brick and mortar, like we'll probably see, much heavier investment into, I would use like, there's a Kohl's near my house and I wanted to go there to get a football the other day and they were closed. Yeah. And going to the Walmart because it was open. And, I would expect, you'd see companies like a Kohl's, right, spending a huge investment in Kohl's.com, right? And so I think you're going to see a lot of major retailers as they're shifting, making much more investments in their online infrastructure, their shipping infrastructure, partnering with different businesses where they can. And I think the consumer, to a large degree, like you said, I think the longer it continues and the more comfortable, folks get, and the more of a routine that they get in with, purchasing things on their phone that they used to walk into a store to get, I think we're going to see kind of continued lift over time.
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. I mean, we talk about this a lot from this, consumer behavior. What is their pattern of behavior in shopping? Which products do they buy online? But you kind of bring up a good point of, the rest of retail outside of kind of the Amazons and Walmarts that have led, obviously, the forefront of e-com. All the D2Cs notwithstanding on their e-com sites where they've been innovating for years. But a lot of these big traditional retailers, I think the stat that we published recently, about 17% of retailers reporting that now more than half of their business is being driven by e-com during the COVID crisis, in comparison to about 7% of retailers, in 2019 at the same time. So the growth of how much these retailers themselves are being forced to think through the e-com problem, where they may have had a toe in the water. They were trying to figure out their organizations. How do they scale their e-com business more? They're just being forced to see this happen and forced to take this leap and this test. So I think this is really interesting sustained models, especially given the infrastructure that a lot of these big retailers have with, localized fulfillment opportunities at the nodes of stores that they have. And like the curbside pickup trend that I expect will continue to scale even as we recover from this. It's super interesting. So I mean, to that point, I know Amazon, with some of the challenges with essential versus non-essential and such spikes in demand, we're having a hard time keeping up with their customer base. Such that if it was a non-essential product I wanted to buy, the shipping window was pushed out maybe 3 weeks. Customer demand, what does that do for the rest of retailers? Is there an opportunity for them?
I think there is. It all depends on your logistics, right? And how fast can you get something to somebody? So I think when I look at sort of sales data, or when I'm advertising, right? So when we're advertising products, there have been many products that we have paused running ads for that have these sort of 3-week ship times, right? Because many folks are willing to wait more than 2 days. Like, if you got a 5-day shipping window, a lot of people are comfortable with that, and it's not impacting in a giant way. But
to an item or a toothbrush, right?
Correct. When your shipping window is 2 weeks plus, that changes, and it makes somebody say, if you have two things: A, do I really need this? And then B, is there another option that'll ship faster? So if someone is in a position, where their logistics are such that they can move things faster, then yeah, they certainly have an opportunity. What we've seen is many Amazon sellers, many brands, if they have the capability to do so, they've shipped to a merchant fulfilled Prime. So Amazon has two shipping methods. That many people know. They have their FBA, fulfilled by Amazon, where Amazon ships the product from their warehouses. And they also have this MFP, this merchant fulfilled Prime, where if you as a business owner who are selling on Amazon, meet a certain criteria, you can still get a Prime badge on your product. You just have to make sure that you're getting it to the customer within that 2-day window. So a lot of folks who have the ability through their own warehouses and such to move product faster, because it's not necessarily, it's not the shipping that's slow. It's not the getting the product from point A to point B. It's the processing in the Amazon fulfillment center, right? Sure. It's the intake of the inventory, the sorting of the inventory. So if you as a brand owner are able to handle that on your own, flipping to merchant fulfilled Prime, a big win for you, over the next month or so, as Amazon is kind of getting their ramp up and getting into capacity. Another thing I just wanted to piggyback off of, the curbside pickup. You touched on that, and I'm really excited about this because I am a person that I don't necessarily love walking around the store all the time or having to look for what I want. And so I think that this ability to go online, purchase what you want, and then just show up and have somebody put it in your car for you is I think that's going to be around. And so if you look at business models, right? If you look at an Amazon, Amazon doesn't have a lot of facilities. They have some bookstores and they have some deals with other retail partners. But if you look at someone like Walmart has an opportunity to really shine in the curbside pickup space and really kind of gain ground over Amazon, because there's many things, where you're shopping and you say to yourself, 2 days is great, but there's other stuff where you're like, man, I really kind of want it now.
Right.
I'm in a rush. I want it today. But if you can buy it on your phone and just drive to the store and it's ready in 30 minutes, that's a win.
Or in the world where you do have to be out and about, and I've seen this too with some of the grocery delivery services where you need to have a 2-hour window or you can pay for a 1-hour window. But wouldn't it be great if I got to go out and pick up the kids anyway? And I'm going by the Walmart. All I got to do is just get the groceries dropped into my trunk.
Exactly.
I'll take care of that last mile. I think maybe that's the point that you're making, is when you have that immediacy demand. And I've always seen that as an opportunity too. You're like, I'm doing something today. I want to do this project today. I just want to go get it. I want that level of control. And I wonder if in this process we've seen some new adopters of that model too. And I know I've seen just anecdotally some of my friends say, I haven't bought from Best Buy forever, but this curbside pickup for me to get this new device or whatever from my home while I'm stuck here was actually a pretty cool model. And I was able to get there and back in 45 minutes, and it was worth it.
No, definitely. I think, and this is why, we saw at the beginning of the year, or it was January, November, December, Amazon announcing, they're changing Prime to 1 day, right? They want to get everything delivered in 1 day. The last mile of the shipping process, I like that you're using the correct terminology. They call it last mile. It's the most expensive part of the shipping process. How do I get it from where it lands in your town to your actual front door? And I think, these places like Walmart, like Amazon had on the grocery side, Amazon Fresh. When I was living in Seattle, there's a few fresh stores. It didn't take off quite like they were hoping. But I do remember using it, and it's just great not having to go up and down the aisles of the grocery store, figure like where's all my stuff, and you pull up, you get it, you leave. So I definitely see for many consumers, just the convenience. I think when you're thinking about shopping trends in general, there's really a few dimensions of competition. So there's 4 dimensions of competition. And so a lot of times in business school, they'll talk about things like price, speed, and quality, right? So like you have to be fast, you have to be competitively priced, and you have to be of good quality, or people are not gonna repeat. So I think, and typically what would happen is people have, they pick one of those, they want to maintain average, right? And then they pick one of those things to focus on. I think in today's business model, with all the transparency and the speed that's out there, like you have to be fast, you have to be good, and you have to be priced appropriately. And that 4th dimension of competition is really the experience, is experience. What is the customer experience, right? And so, essentially, as someone who's doing e-com retail, a consumer can purchase a product that we at Pattern are selling in a number of different places. Mm-hmm. You can purchase it in a brick and mortar store, in somebody's D2C website, on Amazon, on Walmart, on eBay, on Google Shopping, here, and then a bunch of places overseas, right? So there's a lot of places to get that product, and so I think the customer experience, of whoever it is that is selling it, that customer experience is going to be really important. And even from a brand perspective, when a brand is thinking about, what is the customer experience that I want to give to somebody who's shopping for my item, I think that is going to be the dimension of competition that really allows people to differentiate and capitalize on opportunity.
That's interesting. I think too, as we look at what the future of, as retail pivots more into e-com, and as Amazon's advertising business, Walmart's burgeoning advertising business starts to pressure the rest of retail, to answer and with their own site monetization strategy, providing these tools and transparency to these brands to control their experience wherever that shopper might be. I'd be curious to get your perspective as we kind of move ahead and we look at the future of kind of activating these media dollars. How do retailers respond here, and what do you think brands' opportunity is with kind of pressing on in this pay to play? How can I surface myself for the right user or the right term more competitively? And do you see that even as a thread for the brands or inside Pattern as like, I want to be activating more digital shopper marketing dollars or not across these different sales channels?
So typically, I've seen our clients typically in two camps, right? So for those that are really struggling, marketing budgets are kind of getting cut across the board. Like when companies are thinking about doing large layoffs or they're enacting large layoffs, they're typically not spending a ton of cash on ads, right? So you have that group, and then you have another group that is like there are certain businesses, their sales have never been higher, right? It's really a feast or famine. There's some folks that are kind of level, but for many, they've either had major drop off or they've just really skyrocketed in this time. And so there's a lot of brands who are selling in multiple places. Maybe they had a strong e-com business, but they also had retail distribution, right? And that their retail is closed and that distribution is sort of on pause. We're seeing a shift. They're saying, okay, we're sort of losing this revenue stream, and that impacts the business. But how can we reshift our marketing dollars to do more on e-com? Like how can we grow our e-com business and make sure that since that's what's open, we're having as many people see our items as possible. And I think like when you're thinking about advertising on Amazon, right? The key to advertising on Amazon, like the key sort of objective is discoverability, right? But when you think about, say, a billboard or a magazine ad or a TV commercial, there's content in there. There's an element of persuasion in sort of these traditional forms of media. With Amazon advertising, specifically sponsored products, which is sort of the heaviest usage, there's no real call to action, right? There's no persuasiveness in that ad. It's simply, how does your item get discovered? So one of the things I know just from being internal is that less than 3% of all the products on Amazon have ever had a sale. Right. So this is, the 20, that sounds crazy, but there's so many products, there's so many sellers, there's so many people that just add products to Amazon and hoping that somebody's going to buy it. But the reality is more than 97 out of 100 products, nobody ever sees them. Nobody's ever bought them. They've just been sitting there and they've never been purchased. So the key is discoverability, right? So if you are selling, I was talking to somebody yesterday about body wash, right? They're in the bath and body section, and they're trying to sell their body wash. Well, there are 400,000 other body washes, right? Of that similar size and similar scent. So 400,000 is a lot, right? And so that means you have dozens and dozens of pages on Amazon of stuff. So how does somebody find you, right? So you use the advertising to get discovered, right? So a couple other sort of Amazon ad stats that might be interesting to folks. 7 out of 10 shoppers never go to page 2 of Amazon. So if you are not on page 1, you're missing out on 70% of shoppers. 58% of shoppers never scroll to the bottom half of the page.
Right.
So that means more than half of the people, almost 60% of the people, are never even scrolling past the first 4 lines, right? So if your product is not at the top, no one's going to ever see you, right? So you use things like sponsored products to get seen, get visibility. Now, Amazon has some other things like sponsored brands or the former headline ads, which allow you to use sort of content creative and you can send someone to your Amazon store and they can see all your products. They now have launched sponsored brands video. which I think it's something that not a lot of folks are taking advantage of right now. And that gives somebody an opportunity on Amazon while people are scrolling to actually have, something persuasive and a bigger call to action to buying the product. But it's interesting. Like I think there's a lot to be done on Amazon or on these platforms like Walmart for discoverability, and they can use their other digital, like their Facebook and their Instagram and things like that. Those things essentially drive the traffic to Amazon or to the marketplace, and then you use those marketplace ads to make sure that you're discovered, and when they're looking for you, they find you and they don't find somebody else.
Yeah, I mean, Amazon's ranking algorithm, if you want to grow, you may need to be the one that pushes in the initial demand to show Amazon that there's sell-through, and then sell-through mixed with advertising, mixed with your ability to maintain a good operational business is the key to success there. And I think more and more we're seeing the largest brands through this whole ecosystem, not just what's inside the advertising opportunities for a given retailer, but how do they bring their whole program toward juicing 1, 2, 3, all of these different retailers at different times. It's going to be, I think we're in the midst of a pretty big change. Some of the largest CPGs are just starting to see this trend, and certainly we've seen it with the more nimble upstart brands. They've known this for a long time. Tony, we're right up against our half hour here. I'd love to hear any final thoughts you have, anything you want to share, what you see coming next. The floor is yours.
Yeah, I mean, just real quick, I would say that be optimistic. There's opportunities. There's still plenty of opportunities in the marketplace. Invest in digital, invest in your teams, invest in e-com, because there is this wave coming, and the pandemic that we're in has only accelerated that wave. And I think that when this is done, when the dust settles, the future is going to be bright for everyone. So,
well, I'm hoping, Tony, that the next one of these we record, we can do it in a really exciting location that isn't our rooms that we've been in for the last weeks on end. So I appreciate you taking the time to be on Kinshu Ask the Experts Live, Kinshu Ecom. Thank you very much for your time, Tony. We were excited to see Pattern continue to grow and lead in the space, and appreciate you supporting this.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Cheers.